Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is confusion. And I remember Tony Robbins saying that if you're confused, it means you're going to learn something. So we get to look at that dynamic and how that actually works, and maybe find ways to navigate through confusion in a way that serves us into greater expansion. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, and just energizing and making you shine brightly out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any negativity, any remaining stress, tension. And now let's just gently press our palms together and softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, the tickling, the tingling, and allow yourselves to become present right here, right now, in these magnificent bodies that allow us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, we're talking about confusion, and we often look at confusion as an undesired state where, we judge it as a bad thing. I'm so confused. But what is actually happening? Why is it that we experience confusion? What happens is that we have maybe conflicting information, or information that doesn't jive with something that we already know, or that we experience, or that we believe to be true, or familiar at least. And something comes along that sort of disrupts that knowing, or that sense of certainty. And what results is this cognitive dissonance where we can't really find a place to land on, because we've got these polarities, these different pieces of information that aren't necessarily jiving. And I don't mean to restrict what we're talking about to information specifically in terms of ideas, but information perhaps from other experience, information from our senses. We might experience confusion when we get a gut feeling about something, and somebody's saying nice words, but you feel that there's something off. There's that sense of dissonance that is kind of a wake-up call to say, hey, pay attention here, something's not right. What is a really powerful response to the experience of confusion is to ask the question, what is there for me to notice? What is there for me to learn from this? What am I not seeing? Because what'll happen when we ask those kinds of questions is our brain, our being, is going to generate answers. That's just how we work. Is when we ask questions, we're kind of answer machines in a lot of ways. Answering machines, the human answering machine. Ask a question and we'll find a way to answer it. And That's why asking powerful questions is incredibly important. So many of us ask really bad questions, questions that are going to lead us down to a deep and dark rabbit hole. Like, what's wrong with me? Like that's the really bad question because you'll come up with answers for it. But back to confusion, let's look at what kinds of situations. Let's say we're reading directions, we're reading instructions, and the instructions can be really confusing sometimes. That's I don't know if that gives us an opportunity to learn something, and maybe we get to learn how to write better instructions or how to design better instructions. I think that a lot of times when we're faced with a new concept, we feel confusion because we're trying to massage our mind around this thing. We're trying to find a way to be conceptualizing something. We're trying to think about something in a way that we hadn't thought about it previously. Or maybe we've never thought about it previously. So I've told you guys that I am in the cryptocurrency space. So I am doing some investing in that arena, putting my pennies there, and have been very fortunate so far with those pennies turning into more than pennies, which is awesome. But there's lots of new language and lots of new concepts and lots of new practices that I have experienced confusion around. And what I notice about me and my mechanism when I feel confused is most often, if it's something I'm interested in, obviously, what the confusion will inspire in me is a redoubling of my efforts or my attention and my intention. I get more focused and more committed to figuring it out. Like I do love puzzles of all sorts, and so the challenge of it inspires me to rise to that challenge. I don't know if that's the same dynamic for you, but again, with confusion, it's like when I do redouble those efforts, what I find is that I do learn something, I do figure it out. And I think that statement, when you're confused, it means you're about to learn something. I think that's a super insightful statement. And when we can remember that, rather than being stuck in the confusion, rather than being confused, as a being state, I am confused, or in other words, I am confusion. Rather than that is, well, my experience of this is that it is confusing, or that I feel confused. I feel confused rather than I am confused. Then we have the opportunity, we create more of an opening for ourselves to expand our awareness, expand our knowledge, to learn something. And it may be learning to think about something differently, creating, in a way, I guess what we're talking about is the generation of new neural pathways, new ways of thinking, new perception. And what is that like to move into a space of openness about a given topic or a given experience. Whoops. Sorry, guys. I was checking. I haven't seen any comments from you, so I was checking on Facebook and ended up turning on this broadcast, which I didn't mean to do. So I apologize for that. I haven't seen any comments. So if you are commenting, it's because I haven't seen them. And I so appreciate you being here with us every morning. It's just very enriching, whether you comment or not. And I just so appreciate your comments as well. Anyway, I think this process of learning is a really interesting thing. Maybe confusion is an integral part of learning, and learning to navigate all different situations, because what's happening is there's new information, there's new input. Our brain is just sort of working overtime. The gears are turning to find a way to grasp something, a concept or an experience. And what's coming to mind is the word disorientation. And when we're thank you, Jenny. Yay, Jenny just chimed in. Thank you so much. So now I know the comments are working. I appreciate that. Welcome. It's so good to have you here. We're talking about confusion and how confusion may be an integral part of learning. That when we are confronted with new information, or when we are presented with new information, that it takes some mental manipulation oftentimes to be able to grasp what that information is, to be able to integrate it. And so what happened, it's interesting. I wonder, what are the things that go on in our head around integrating new concepts, moving from confusion to clarity. What is that dynamic? So the impulse to try and make sense of things. Good morning, Bernadette. So good to have you here with us. We're talking about confusion, and confusion not necessarily as a negative state. Typically, we interpret confusion as something negative. And I remember when I was in Tony Robbins training years and years ago, he said, if you're confused, it means you're going to learn something. So I thought it would be interesting to be taught. Jenny says, learning about cryptocurrency and investing is confusing. Yeah, it's a whole different way of thinking. It's a whole new language, for sure. I have experienced many moments of confusion and feeling intimidated, in fact. Good morning, Kevin. Welcome. So good to have you here. We're talking about confusion as a step toward learning. And so moving through, I think it's almost like there are all these pieces on the board, and initially you can be looking at that and it's very confusing. But when you start being able to decipher the positions of things and the placement of things and the relationship of things to each other, what we're doing when we're learning is we're trying to find, or we typically find, reference points. We typically look for reference points. Like we learn something new by comparing it to something we already know. And so I had done some studying, going back to the whole crypto thing. I had done some trading with options some years ago, and learning a little bit, too little, unfortunately, about reading charts and candlestick charts and, finding out information about different companies. So that I already had that, what I call Velcro, to attach the new concept to, right? So what we're doing when we're learning something is we're developing Velcro to stick things onto. And then as we stick the new information onto that, we can start making sense of it. And then, we can add new pieces. So, there's a lot to learn in the crypto arena. Bernadette says, learning technology as it advances is very confusing for me. Just like being raised with inches and having it changed metric, mind-boggling for me. You know what? I still haven't figured that whole thing out, the inches to metric. I fortunately can still live in a world of inches and feet, but the metric measurements are challenging for me as well, because we get indoctrinated. Now, if I were to really commit myself to understanding metrics, the way that I would be able to do it would be to map it onto something that I already know, right? That's what we do. So when we're in a state of confusion, we haven't really found the place yet to map that information to. And there's not always an easy place to map information onto. I taught software for 18 years. I had an Adobe training center. So Photoshop and Illustrator, InDesign, all these different Adobe programs, software programs. And there were a lot of new concepts. And I also taught web design. And so to be able to, like with web, to give people an understanding of how servers or what a server is or what the cloud is, now it's kind of common information. We have an understanding of what the cloud is, and probably have a basic understanding about how the internet works and how we're able to get to information and what it means, how the website stuff works. We probably have some fundamental understanding of it. But this was a long time ago, and the technology was new for people to understand some of the mechanics behind it. And so I would always create analogies, and that's what I mean by Velcro. It's like you have a reference point that you can build on. That's why learning through storytelling is so powerful, because it gives us a contextual understanding or a reference point. So I think what we get to do is to recognize confusion as a learning point, as a transition point, because what's happening is there's maybe a displacement, maybe an addition, maybe like finding orientation is what's happening in an unfamiliar surrounding, trying to map the territory, so to speak, is what goes on. And I think that rather than being upset by being confused, what would be way more beneficial is to get curious. So Jenny says self-learning with crypto and NFT can get confused easily with the language. Jenny, I'm so glad to hear that you're doing what I'm doing. I'm also doing self-learning with crypto and NFTs. And in fact, I'm really excited about I'm creating a collection of NFTs that I'm going to call Maggie's, because they are all photographs that I have modified with brilliant colors. Some of them are animated. And my intention is to utilize those to fund the sustainability projects that I have, one of which is the Eco Park, and the other is an RV that hopefully I'm hoping to be able to create an RV that is autonomously powered, but at least have an RV that I can travel around the country and interview people doing amazing things in the arena of sustainability. Anyway, I agree with you 100% that the language, it is a whole new language, and there's some sites or that I read and they're unintelligible. And there are times when I've just completely given up and just said, not doing this, like it's too much and I don't care enough to really invest the effort to figure it out. So Elaine says, blessings, all you beautiful ones, in the flow of life, and all these wonderful icons or emojis. Thank you, Elaine. So good to have you here. So Jenny says, watching a lot of YouTube videos. Me too. NFT is not really self-explained. So NFT stands for non-fungible token, for those of you that are curious about it. And it's an emerging marketplace. It's based on something called smart contracts. And these smart contracts are self-executing contracts, agreements. And so the NFT boom right now, it's really craziness. I mean, and when I first saw it, it made no sense to me whatsoever. But as I'm digging more deeply into it, what I am learning is that it's a way to transfer property, to raise money, the idea is that it creates a chain of ownership that is immutable. And right now people are using it with art and music and all different kinds of things, and spending obscene amounts of money for ridiculous things, kind of like the pet rock craze. But it is something that is going to be very heavily integrated into our future. And I just found out the other day that Coinbase is going to be starting an NFT platform. Right now, if you're interested in NFTs, you can go look on a site called OpenSea, OPENSEA, or Rarible, RARIBLE, or Wax, WAX. I actually bought a couple NFTs from The Princess Bride. If you guys remember that movie, they had an NFT collection that they released, and I got all excited about it. Anyway, big stuff, big changes. I invite you to check that stuff out, because maybe we can just talk about cryptocurrency one of these mornings, maybe even tomorrow, who knows. So Bernadette says, when technology came out, I was in the workforce and loved it. I went on disability and didn't have a computer or even a cell until about 10 years ago. Mindset is very old school when it's dealing with technology. Push button on and off, LOL. Yes. So the thing about technology is that it is moving so fast. It's moving so quickly, right? It's really quite remarkable. You can blink and the world is different in a lot of ways when it comes to technology. So yeah, it's very interesting stuff. And I am very pleased and excited to say that my father, who was in his late 80s and early 90, 91, he was using a computer and a cell phone. And my mom, who just had her 91st birthday, we got her an iPhone this past year, and she's loving it and taking pictures and finally texting. And so we can adapt and learn these new technologies. We evolve with technology too. I think it evolves more quickly than we do, however. Anyway, so Elaine says confusion is a beautiful and powerful experience. I agree. And what Elaine goes on to say, for me, confusion is a word humans use to understand the downloading process of incoming information. Well, I agree. And I think that the confusion exists while we're kind of sorting through that information, trying to process it, trying to find the Velcro to stick the new ideas onto so that they so that we can make sense of them, and to be learning new patterns. So I do, the more I'm talking about it with you this morning, the more I'm thinking that really confusion is an integral part of learning. And so if we address our confusion with curiosity rather than judgment or fear, we're going to be in a much, much better place. Jenny says, learning to keep up financially with the times can be hard to keep up with. I have a hard time with the platforms. Well, it's the wild, wild west right now, Jenny, for sure. I think maybe we get to talk about crypto tomorrow. I would love to do that just because it's so fascinating. Talk about money and finance and new economies and things. I think that could be really fun topic. So hopefully I'll remember that tomorrow. And I'm going to wrap it up because I have a meeting with a financial planner today. I'm very excited. Somebody who's speaking financially, who is hopefully going to educate me in areas that I am as yet unfamiliar. So maybe I will be pleasantly confused, and I certainly will be curious. So with so much love to you, Jenny says Discord platform is very confusing. Yeah, I haven't wrapped my head around that either. It's kind of like technology, social media in a way is what I get about it. Like yeah, I will talk more about it tomorrow, perhaps. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you guys. I'm so delighted to have this time together, and I so appreciate your contribution to this conversation and to the whole group of people who are here to share this time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So much love. And until next time, be curious. If you're confused, be curious. And it means you're going to learn something.